It's very, very hard to accept the fact that you might be being sprayed like a bug if you don't also question the fact that the people that govern us might not always be on our side. It's a huge consciousness shift to the reality that we are living in, okay? To suddenly realise that the people in control might not be in our favour is a big, big shift to the way we live and to the way we view our reality and the way we view our world.
That was just a taster of an incredible interview I had with Vicki Schoolman about chemtrails, which will be coming up very soon on the show. But before that, let me introduce you to the concept of chemtrails. Now, there are probably a lot of you listening who have never heard of a chemtrail. In fact, most people I speak to look at me blankly when I mention the name. Well, if you look up in the sky, you'll usually see long white streaks that spread for miles. Now, they're contrails, left behind from various aircraft. These days, it's rare to see a completely clear sky, as they're full of the remnants of these spreading lines. Many of you have probably never even thought about what you see in our skies, but something strange is definitely going on up there. Now, I always thought that contrails were simply water vapour that stays in the atmosphere for a few seconds and then disappears. This no longer appears to be the case. Now, just take a look on a clear day and you'll see what I mean. Many different theories have been put forward. Some believe it's weather control, others that we're being poisoned by biological weapons, and there's also a theory that it's a method of reducing global warming, and another that it's the type of jet fuel that's been used. From these theories, the term chemtrails has developed, and the number of websites devoted to the subject is incredible, and it's now a worldwide phenomenon. Personally, I believe that whatever's happening, the skies above us are definitely an ugly mass of white lines and unnatural cloud formations, and something has certainly changed up there over the last decade or so. In this programme, we plan to take a deeper look at the phenomenon of chemtrails. What really is happening in our skies? That was Blind Melon with No Rain, and after the next song, we've got Vicki Schoolman in the studio, who'll be telling us all about chemtrails, and I promise you, it's an interview not to be missed. In the studio we have celebrated artist Vicki Schoolman, who in fact introduced me to the concept of chemtrails a number of years ago, and alongside Vicki is Pat Wood, dowser and healer, both of whom are experts in their fields. Welcome to the studio, Vicki.
Oh my God, I don't know about expert, Mike. Are you having a laugh?
And welcome to you, Pat.
Thank you.
Vicki, I know you're very passionate about this subject, and I believe it's a very serious issue. First of all, could you tell the listeners what exactly is the difference between a chemtrail and a contrail?
Okay, before I do that, I think I would like to say something to the listeners about the fact that it's very, very hard to accept the fact that you might be being sprayed like a bug if you don't also question the fact that the people that govern us might not always be on our side. It's a huge consciousness shift to the reality that we are living in, okay? To suddenly realise that the people in control might not be in our favour is a big, big shift to the way we live and to the way we view our reality and the way we view our world. Having said that, and having gone through this shift over the last few years, and I'm still going through it, the difference between a contrail and a chemtrail are that contrails come out of jets and they disperse. They're nearly all vapour, and they disperse quite quickly. Sometimes not so quickly, dependent on the height of the plane, or the speed it's going, or the climate. Okay, because I did get a letter back from Friends of the Earth about this. So it's not always as quick as we assume with the vapour trails. But having said that, the chemtrails, it has now been proved beyond any doubt, contain vast amounts of aluminium and barium and various chemical toxins that are just polluting our atmosphere. And they disperse into a large film that covers the sky. So they start off as a thick trail. They're not on flight paths, I've checked this. The planes go willy-nilly wherever they fancy. They do big crisscrosses in the sky. All the trails meet up, disperse, cover the sky so that we've got a very, very, very diluted sun, okay? And then sometimes within that almost film that you get over the sky, which is covering it, so we never have clear blue, we'll see little oily patches like rainbows. So it's like an oily film. And that's what drew my attention to it. I couldn't actually believe it the first time I saw it.
Fascinating. How did you first find out about chemtrails?
I first found out because of an incredible TV station that we have here, and I'll plug it big time. It's called Controversial TV. They're totally voluntary, and they bring all these issues to the front because, as you know, we aren't allowed to really know what's going on in our lives at the moment. So I was listening to a guy called Ian R. Crane, who's one of the people that does a lot of conferences and speaks about the New World Order agenda at the moment. And when he was on air, there was a live phone-in from somebody down in Devon, and she was asking for the first time, did he know anything about these particular trails that they were seeing in the sky? At the time, he didn't, and so I didn't think anything more of it. It just kind of seeded in my head on another bloody thing, excuse my French, that we have to look at in this day and age. Then I went out to work a few weeks later, at 7 o'clock in the morning, and above my house, stretching for as far as I could see, was a symmetrical grid, literally a symmetrical grid like a chessboard of lines in the sky. I was so freaked out that I ran back into my partner and I said, for God's sake, look out the window, look what's going on. I said, I've got to go to work, but you look at those lines in the sky and you see them, they're all going to spread and they're all going to join up and they're going to cover the sky all day. And that's exactly what they did. Now that went on for about, I would say, 3 or 4 weeks in the Gloucestershire area. And I saw the effect this was having on people's moods. I saw how anxious they were getting. And I kind of was starting to put 2 and 2 together, and then I started researching it because of what I'd actually seen. And the stuff online is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
So what do you believe is really happening up there?
That's a massive, massive question. And you have to be prepared to go down an incredibly deep rabbit hole before you start even talking about the truth. There are many, many things that could be going on up there. I mean, it could be, as we've been told by some people in power, because I did go to see my MP about this.
Yeah, you were telling me about
Actually,
that.
maybe I should talk about that first. When I went to see my MP, Martin Harwood, I went with my daughter and a friend who'd both witnessed the chemtrails. And in fact, the friend that I went with actually found in her garden one day loads and loads and loads of tiny little particles, and I wish to God we'd kept them in a jar and sent them off for analysis, but we were very naive when that happened. They were kind of a pale green colour and almost looked like tiny particles of glass.
So how long ago was this?
This was 2009. Okay, so I went to see Martin Harwood with my friend and my daughter. The only thing I can say was, although he was very pleasant and charming, he treated me like a complete nut job. He looked down very condescendingly at me. I could tell that I was a mere conspiracy theorist. Now, as soon as you mention the word conspiracy theorist, this is another thing I wanted to get across. We are so brainwashed and manipulated by our media that the very word conspiracy, and I think Kennedy said this once in the speech a few weeks before he was assassinated, leads to people thinking that you're insane. We aren't allowed to question our reality. We're not allowed to question the world that we live in, because if we don't conform, like most of the people do, outside of the box, if we do not conform within the box, we are labelled mad. Okay? So before I'd even gone into his office, I know that he had labelled me a mad conspiracy theorist.
Well, I know that a lot of high-profile celebrities like Prince has spoken publicly about chemtrails. The rock band Beck even brought out a song about it. Yet, I know what you mean. The media, they don't appear to take it seriously. Well, perhaps there's some underlying reason for that.
I think it's a pyramid structure, Mike. I think that, we don't know who's in control of us. I certainly think democracy is an illusion. I certainly think that what we vote for we don't get. I certainly think that we are not governed for our good anymore. I think we are controlled. And I certainly think that probably my MP knew nothing about this agenda. Absolutely nothing about it. But what he was not willing to do was look beyond his nose to see if there was any truth in the agenda. So what I did then was I emailed another MP who I know can think outside the box, and that is Norman Baker. And I got an incredibly nice response from him. And in his response he said, this was just before the election, and he said, well, we know that we've been experimented on in the past. The Porton Down experiments that were carried on the south coast of the UK between 1940 and 1979 are very well documented. So I'm completely believing that this could be happening again. So then I actually researched the experiments. I haven't written them all down. This is for people that are listening to do their own journey with. If they want to, there's enough online. If they want to Google experiments on the general populace by aerosol, they can do that. They'll get enough hits. But he said he would be looking into it seriously after the election. Now the thing is, the other thing I've come to realise is that if you start showing signs that you're going to look outside the box and you're in positions of power, you're either got rid of or you're quietened. How they do that, I don't know. But certainly positions of power are there for a reason, and they're not there to give that power over to the populace. They're there to take that power away from the populace. Okay? But he sent me a very, very nice, uncondescending email saying that he was taking this agenda very seriously and he would look into it.
And you haven't heard anything since?
No. But I did get a response from Friends of the Earth, who Martin Harwood, the MP, had written to, and they said that they'd been talking about the trails agenda for years because of the busy skies that they foresaw years ago, and that they saw that we would have an environmental problem from the planes. But the planes that I witnessed over Gloucestershire were not on flight paths. They were not passenger planes. They were not planes that would normally be on those paths. They were doing completely random lines in the sky. And my partner, who is a complete and utter skeptic of anything that is conspiracy linked, had to admit that it was pretty freaky that what he was witnessing.
This is Trad Wornfoot live at Stroud Airport, and today I'm going to test the theory that these chemtrail things are full of nasty chemicals and stuff. At the moment, I'm just waiting for the pilot to start the plane. When we get up there, I'm going to fly into the chemtrail, and with this new fandangled contraption I've got in my hand, look to see if the conspiracy theorists are telling the truth. If there is barium and aluminium in the atmosphere, we'll soon find out. Right, we're now directly over Cranham and ascending into a quite large chemtrail that's been in the sky now for about 3 hours. Right then, now, if I just open the window, I've got a lovely view of Painswick over the top there, and we coming down now through Painswick. If I just open the window, it's windy, isn't it? My God. And hold up my arm, I can get a reading on this scientific gadget. See what's in the atmosphere. Hang on. If I just... I'm still on the microphone, and as I haven't got a parachute, this might be the last words I say. I can just about see the reading on the chemical detector display here, and it says, please insert battery. My, that was lucky. I appear to have landed in the open-air swimming pool of Stratford Park. Oh, see you in the studio pretty soon, everybody.
Vicki, is there anything else you want to actually say about the chemtrails conspiracy?
I think the HAARP, that's HAARP, installation in Alaska, it's been there since about 1990, is something that your listeners should research. It's a high-frequency active auroral research program based in Alaska, and it's area of acreage of antennae that actually zoom a frequency up, either continuous or pulsing low frequency, into our ionosphere. Now our atmosphere is like a thin layer of paint on a ball, okay? We aren't told that they're experimenting with our ionosphere, as they call it, but we know they are. It's not above top secret stuff, but it's certainly not spoken about in the mainstream, okay? Now this frequency that is pulsed either continuously or pulsed irregularly into the ionosphere could be doing a number of things. It could be definitely connected with the chemtrail agenda as far as weather modification goes, and people out there might be laughing their socks off now when I say weather modification, but actually they've been seeding the clouds since about the 1920s, okay, to help the rainfall or to give areas of drought. In fact, I have researched stuff that says that weather might be the ultimate war weapon to actually give countries massive periods of drought or massive periods of floods, which then wrecks the food chain, which then obviously you starve and you die. So it could be doing that. It could be actually being used for an insidious form of mind control, which also again sounds far-fetched, but if you actually go and do your research and research things like MK Ultra that the CIA were involved in America, which is quite broadly logged on the internet, to be honest, it's not hard to find out about, you can see that actually mind control is a massive, massive thing in our society on many levels. So the HAARP installation is something that needs to be looked at because it's to do with weather, it's to do with our atmosphere, and therefore it might be linked to the chemtrail debate and agenda. Okay? The other thing I wanted to say before we start talking about something else is that Monsanto, who are a massive, massive corporation in charge of GMO foods, actually brought a patent out, and I've written it down here, genetically modified seed patent for aluminium resistant gene, patent 7582809, granted September the 1st, 2009. Now, if that's a coincidence that they're making aluminium resistant seeds, then I am a rabbit about to come out of a hat, because seriously, how much more proof do we need that somehow this agenda goes hand in hand globally? And there is something massive going on that we're not being informed about, that we're being shown tiny glimpses of, that we're being denied a reality to when we question it by our governors. What more can I say?
I heard a number of years ago it was bandied about that the flooding that we had in 2007 may have been something to do with what's going up in our skies, allegedly. Have you heard anything about that?
I heard quite a lot about that at the time, and at the time I didn't know about the chemtrails, but now that I do, and now that I know about cloud seeding, nothing surprises me, Mike. The only thing that surprises me is how asleep most of the populace are to any of this stuff going on. That's what surprises me on a daily basis. Actually, you'll talk to somebody about this. In fact, I've given up trying to talk to people about it, because I also realise that you can't wake up people simply by talking about it to them. They've got to come to their own truth at their own time. But it never ceases to amaze me that you'll say something and they'll just turn the TV on and look at a game. That's simply what happens in our society now.
It does seem to be the generation we're fostering, yeah.
And we know as teachers, you know, the education agenda, we don't actually teach kids to think, really. We teach them how to tick boxes and pass exams.
It's dangerous to think.
We need to be educating our kids to a future that we don't know about, basically, a doubtful future. So we need to be educating our kids about how to think and how to be human. We haven't reached humanity yet. I don't think we've ever been human. It would be nice to think we would educate our kids to be human, but that isn't what's happening in schools at the moment. Schools are becoming very toxic. They're being taken over by robot-type heads who walk in, change the system. Teachers are living in a fear-based world where they don't know what's happening around the corner. Everyone's stressed out of their mind. In fact, that's the usual workplace. Everyone's on edge now. Everyone's fear-based. And the fear-based thing is the agenda to keep the populace under control. We need to rise above it, find peace in our hearts, and find some truth.
Food for thought for the listeners definitely there. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Pat. As we near the end of the show, I'm joined in the studio by Stroud FM's iconic presenter, Paul Farrar. Paul, welcome to the show. If you look up in the sky and you see the white streaks from aeroplanes that last for hours and hours, the reality is this shouldn't happen. Contrails,
yeah, they just hang there, don't they?
Contrails should basically disappear after a few seconds, maybe a few minutes at the most, because it's the water vapour just disappearing into the atmosphere. But you see them now, and they stay there for 6, 7, 8 hours, and then they spread. Now, I've played golf in the morning, I've been out and I've looked and I've watched the aeroplanes go across, huge, thick trails behind them, and they stay. And what would have been a lovely morning, a lovely blue sky, is transformed into cirrus clouds. And you see lots and lots of them, and they crisscross. You may see 20 or 30 in the sky. And I think people don't look at them, they're not aware of them, or they've become accustomed to them.
Yeah.
But when I was a lad, when I was a boy, 20, 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, it didn't happen. I'm certain that I didn't look in the sky and see these huge streaks. Now, one of the things...
Streakers, you might
A lot
have.
of people say, oh, you're looking back and you're thinking of the halcyon days, and of course they were there. But the reality is, you watch TV programmes. You watch TV programmes from the 1970s
Yeah.
and the 1980s, and you just do not see these streaks across the sky. You don't see these white lines scattered in very often lattice shapes across the sky. It's not there. You look at them from certainly the last 15 years. You watch TV programs for the last 15 years and it's all over the place. I've seen photographs, I've seen paintings as well, and it's become part of our lives. I didn't think this was a reality 10 years ago. I wouldn't have even thought of looking up in the sky. And I've spoken to other people since, and I've said, have you seen these huge contrails? And they say, what's contrails? And I say, well, just do it, just look. You know, I'm not going to say anything, all right? I can go on for hours. I was just look on a nice day, look in the sky. How often do you see a clear blue sky these days? You don't, because there are nothing but these white streaks which spread and just, they turn into cirrus clouds.
Yeah.
Now, something's going on, whether or not it's the jet fuel, whether they've changed the type of jet fuel, whether or not maybe the governments are trying to do something about global warming. Because we know that on 9/11, the days after 9/11, the temperature of this planet raised incredibly. It went up a number of degrees all the way across the world. And that was because there weren't any airplanes up there. Now, it's just an interesting concept. A lot of people think, it's considered a possibility that was what the G8 summit was all about.
Yeah.
Because since then, the number of contrails which appear in our skies are much more.
Well, that's a fascinating subject, Spike, and it's certainly food for thought. And I know you're going to talk a lot more about that in future programs, but for the people out there, Google it, find out more about it. It's absolutely fascinating.
I think if people do go on there, they'd be absolutely fascinated by the YouTube videos that are around. It's absolutely phenomenal and quite frightening, to be honest with you. But whether you believe the conspiracy theorists or not, just go on there, have a look, see what you think. Read the web pages, check out the videos. It's happening all over the world. Just do it.